I suppose the biggest storyline we must get into is obviously the opponent change. Originally, you were supposed to fight Nick Diaz. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of the timeline of when you realized this fight wasn't happening and the process of getting matched up with your next opponent?
Yeah, so it started with that video, that showed up of
Hmm.
him on the street, and it a lot of people were like saying a lot of things, and it is a crazy video when you see it, right? But at the same time, I was really concerned more than anything for Nick, and you never want to see somebody in that condition, especially after having the career he had, being the legend he is. I don't want to see a guy end up like that, and what I hope and pray for is that he can recover, he can, get back in track, whatever, that is. I don't know what that would be for him, but just be able to, I don't know, get things together and, take care of his family, take care of himself, and be able to move on, and do anything that he plans on doing forward. And that's kind of when I started to realize, and Ali was talking to me, we got to start thinking on a plan B. What are we going to do? And that's when they were working on names. And Themba was a guy that had already mentioned, I think even before that, he had talked about if this fight,
You had, yeah.
for some reason, doesn't happen, I'm going to be ready. So we had that name. We had a few other names that went through, but Themba was the guy that really was down to fight. And for me, it's great because I've been working. I want to go in there. I
Mm.
want to fight. I have a great time to get ready for this fight as well. It's not like a super short notice change where I have to just fight with whatever tool. I can study, I can plan myself a little bit, and I have great guys. I
Mm.
have a great team here at Killcliff to get me ready for this guy and to get me ready for this fight. And most of the job has been done physically. I am great, and technically, I've been working on a lot of my things, so I'm ready. I'm ready. It's just certain adjustments and go in there and go to war.
You said something to me that was very interesting to me when we caught up in Manchester, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but you said
Yeah, for
that
sure.
one of the challenges of fight camp is that you're preparing for one guy for such a long time, and that's kind of the mental battle of is he preparing more than me? Is he preparing better than me? You've been preparing for Nick Diaz for probably 6 months now, or if not longer. You're now going to fight a different guy on, let's say, 3 weeks' notice. What is the process for you of getting ready and kind of adjusting your game plan and adjusting your style for your upcoming fight?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that I was getting ready for Nick to fight in August.
Mm.
After that got moved, and once that got canceled, what the UFC was saying, like, we're gonna get it rescheduled.
Mm.
So I didn't know when that was gonna happen, and it took about a month for them to really give me a date. And during that month, I was kind of like, am I gonna fight him or are we gonna get another opponent? So because I didn't know, I decided, and with everybody, my coaches, we knew like the best thing right now is for you to focus on your game and train with everybody. So that's what I did. For a long time, I was training until I got the date and got into a training camp. So for me, a training camp is about 8 weeks.
Mm.
So after that fight was canceled, I just focused on training, my own abilities, getting better at my own game, strengthening myself, and training with all kinds of different guys. So taller guys, heavier guys, uh, shorter guys, southpaws, orthodox. So I was working with everybody. Then once I got to those 8 weeks, I focused again on southpaw, kind of like heavy boxing, good grappling, and was focused on that, the skill set of Nick. But really, I trained for so long for this fight that I've trained everything,
Mm.
So in a way, kind of like I feel like I am ready to fight anybody in any kind of game, that there
Mm.
is out there because that's what I was focusing on, just improving on my own abilities and being able to, to fight in a dangerous way, which is always the best way I fought.
I love it. We've just seen a guy actually out of your gym, Killcliff FC, and Michael Chandler, who waited around for an opponent for a number of years in Conor McGregor, and I think he got to a point where he wanted to fight, and he's obviously gone come up short on Saturday night against Charles Oliveira. With the Nick fight, have you kind of moved past that in your mind, or do you have any interest in that fight if the UFC come to you next year or even further in the future and offer you that fight, or with the numerous bookings, have you moved past that in your mind?
I mean, right now I have, I'm past that moment, especially because my plans are to move up in the division. So, this fight right now in December is that fight that gets me back into the mix. So, I'm obviously gonna stick to my plan, and that's what I believe on in the plan I have, and making that work. So we've moved past that, and I don't know. Right now, all I can do is hope for Nick's recovery in general, as a human being, that he can, get back to just being in a good spot. If he's gonna fight again or not, we don't know,
Mm.
but that's kind of what I can say about that.
How do you size up your next opponent? Themba Gorimbo, and maybe what are some of the maybe similarities between him and Diaz's game, and maybe a couple of the key differences you look at?
I think they're both like long guys, that's kind of similar. Now Themba is an orthodox, which is I've been fighting so many southpaws. It's a long
Mm,
time I haven't fought an orthodox, so that's gonna be, I don't know. I cannot say if it's better or not. For me, I'm just used to both now. I've
mm,
trained so much with both kind of stances, but both guys are long. I think that's similar. Both guys can kind of mix it up, but I think in very different ways. I think that Themba is a guy that likes to, when he wrestles, he likes to be on top position and controlling. So that's, I see that he could do that very well. And he could strike, but also more versatile, not only focused on boxing, but he can kickbox a little, So I think what they have similar is that they can do everything. They could
mm,
strike or grapple, but the way they do it is very different. So that's where I really think that it's completely different fighters. Themba is very, very fast, very explosive. A guy that can that moves. Also, he's not so static, trying to box heavily, and he'll mix it up a lot. That's what I saw, especially from his last fight against Nico. And I think it was a very dominant fight by him. He fought very intelligent. So that's kind of what I'm getting ready for. A guy that, yeah, it's gonna go in there. He's still gonna try to maybe get the job done standing up, maybe take me down.
mm,
But mostly what I see is a guy that's gonna try to, let's say, try to take the fight wherever it's better for him, and
mm,
try to get me in a place where I'm not comfortable. So what I'm trying to get ready, not only for this fight, but in general, that's what I feel like I've always done really well, is be ready for everything. If we're gonna strike, if we're gonna grapple, I'm gonna be dangerous on both and have threats on both, and make sure that I dominate on both situations. Like, I want to make him shoot because he doesn't want to strike. I want him to get up with the ground because he doesn't want to be there down there
mm.
grappling with me. Always keep him on that danger spot. So that's what I see for this fight. I think that it's something that I know that I could do very well, and that's what I've been training for.
I feel like, look, we talked about this multiple times, but I feel like from a casual fan's perspective, it would have been a massive win to get a Diaz brother on your record. But I actually feel from a hardcore fan's perspective, and maybe to move up to the top end of the division where you want to get to. I know the Themba is actually unranked at the moment, but I feel like you might actually get more credit or more kind of more your stock may go up, to use a phrase, over more over the win of over Themba than you might over Nick Diaz. Would you agree with that?
I do agree. I think that Nick was that kind of like a hype fight, a
Mm,
fight that was going to bring a lot of the eyes of the fans. But if we look at it in a MMA perspective, me beating Nick would be even like, and I'm not underestimating him. I mean, no matter how great he could be at that fight, it would be kind of like my obligation to go out there and beat him.
Yes.
just because of the moment that he is in and the moment I'm in.
Mm.
And, he could just show up there, the best Nick ever. Still, because of what happened in the past and the moment he is, it would be my obligation as the fighter, in the rankings right now, active right now, to go out there and beat him. Fans and all that is it's a whole different story. Now, when we go to this fight, is a fight where we have an up and coming fighter that has beaten some tough guys. That has looked very good on his last fight. That is very hungry to get into that ranking.
Mm.
And me, which I've been in the rankings for a long time. People know what I can do inside the octagon, and I'm trying to reestablish myself. So I think it's definitely that fight where when you look at it as a sport and as MMA and as rankings, it's definitely a fight that makes much more sense to move me forward and to show everybody, that I am ready to get back to that top of the division and test my skills and test my development. So for sure,
Mm.
I think it's a fight that makes more sense in that way.